Mike Owens and Inside Fighting here, joined today by John Gooden, who I'm sure would rather be on the ground at MSG for UFC 309, but is still kind enough to join us. John, always a pleasure. How are things with you today?
Yeah, doing good, mate. Yeah, of course. Yeah, not got a front row seat for this one, but I'm happy to be here in the UK doing a few other bits and pieces. We're celebrating the amateur team. England had a great outing at Uzbekistan, so just bathing in the glory of that, plus some other stuff going on as well.
Your level of excitement for UFC 309 and the fight card that we have planned.
Yeah, it's going to answer a lot of questions. There's some stuff hanging in the air. I'm, of course, referring to the main event. Co-main event's just going to, two bonus machines going at one another, which has implications for the lightweights. Plus, we got a bunch of Europeans as well that are looking
Mm.
to either bounce back or really kind of pop out from the pack. So, yeah, there's plenty for us to get looking forward to locally, but also on the wider scheme, we've got some good prospects coming through.
Let's start with the main event because there's so much talk about it and so much talk about this fight actually being booked. I want to get your thoughts first and foremost because there's a lot of different opinions on who Jon Jones should have made his first title defense against. So, where do you stand on the rebooking of the Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic fight after UFC 295?
I do get it. I do get why the UFC have stuck with Stipe Miocic. We do have some recency bias in this
Mm.
sport, which is fine, by the way. But I was there when Stipe won his title in Brazil. I got to share a couple of moments with him and the team, and he's still around. He's still the guy at heavyweight. He's the record holder. So if he wants to do it, and John wants to do it, and I'm trying to see this from John's perspective as well, then get it done. But going forward, I'd like to see some different things. But yeah, let's play this one out. I know that the fans wanted to see it be a unification match with Tom, but let's play this one out. We're here now, and I think it's going to be a really interesting fight. And people forget about Stipe,
Mm.
and we didn't really see a great deal of John at heavyweight, did we? Against Cyril, just not a great night for Cyril at all. Great night for John, but yeah, let's see what he looks like against another legit big dude.
I think one of the reasons why this has been booked is obviously the grandiose of both men's records, and kind of a point that I haven't heard many people speak about, and I'm interested to get your opinion of is where do you feel like this fight ranks in terms of the biggest fights of either man's career?
Hmm. God, I mean, John's career is so deep, right?
Mm.
So deep. We're reminded in times like this when we go back through his resume, just who he's faced, who he's beaten,
Mm.
and then you start considering why he maybe made that move to heavyweight after his body of work. Guys like Daniel Cormier, just absolute legends. Alexander Gustafsson. I mean, I'm not going to reel them off.
Yeah.
Stipe has been out a long time, make no bones about it. But he did beat everyone, but well, largely. But he's got such a great body of work at heavyweight as well. He was never going to make 205. And I think he's just one of those quiet guys that doesn't stamp his feet, bang the drum too loud. He's been busy fighting fires and taking care of his family, not too bothered apparently
Mm.
about what we're all saying. So he sort of just makes this cameo, and what happens now. So I think we need to give him the respect. I think that's what the UFC are doing as well. And they're giving him this huge opportunity against the greatest of all time. There are a lot of greatest of themes to this fight. So I like it, and I'm interested in seeing it for sure. But after this, we need a definitive direction for the division.
UFC 309 is finally here. Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic for the UFC heavyweight title. And we've partnered with our friends at DraftKings to bring you an incredible new offer. New customers who bet $5 will receive $200 in bonus bets instantly using our promo code Inside Fighting. Do you buy into the theory at all? Because I've seen this theory online that although we have such a massive amount of tape on John's light heavyweight career, we don't actually know what Jon Jones looks like as a heavyweight, given the sample size is just over 2 minutes against Cyril Gane.
A little bit, yeah. I do think that John has got a lot of physical attributes that allow him to be good on paper as both a light heavyweight and a heavyweight. That sounds like almost like a ridiculous thing to say, but I'm just
Mm,
taking out his technical ability,
mm,
just his size and
yeah.
his length. But there's a vast difference between 205 and 265. I'm not saying that Stipe is going to come in at 265, by the way, but he's a very well balanced heavyweight, Stipe Miocic. He's just a big man, big skull, big thick body,
Mm,
big hands, um, moves in a certain way. Just everything's really well positioned for that weight class, which was, I think, one of the reasons why he was so successful and why he's so dangerous. But Jon Jones, not only does he have all of these great physical attributes, he's also got this. I say it a lot now, but I'm just going to go back to the phrase I usually use. He's just got a voodoo about him, right?
mm,
He's a bad, bad dude, a really bad man, like the
mm,
greatest guy we've ever seen in there. And with that it's not so much a mystique, but you've got to get past that. Anyone who steps in there with Jon Jones, I think Anthony Smith spoke about this probably more eloquently than some of the other guys, but you're not only just getting in there with a top 205 or heavyweight now,
mm,
you're in there against Jon Jones. So there's a lot to get over. And Jon's skills everywhere, right? Everywhere. One of the most creative mixed martial artists we've ever seen. So as much as we haven't seen, it would be his ability to take shots is what we haven't seen at heavyweight. We've seen enough of what he can dish out.
mm.
And we've seen how concussive and how fight ending he can be. So I don't need a lot of convincing.
Yeah, I agree. This feels like really good timing for us to schedule this because I'm sure you will have seen Jon Jones's media day yesterday, where he was, I think, more than half the questions had Tom Aspinall's name in them at some point. Just your reaction to John's, excuse me, let's say unwillingness and uninterest in fighting Tom, particularly the line about he won't fight Tom because he's quote unquote an arsehole. Thought that was quite an interesting one.
And the timeliness of this submission, Radio put out a really nice piece of content where 9 months ago, I think it was alluding to when John was over here in the UK, and there was this groundswell of enthusiasm
Mm.
for them to fight. And he said, yeah, I think, yeah, I'm interested in that fight. I'm interested in that fight. Fast forward 9 months. Tom's an arsehole. I'm not. I kind of don't like what the fans have been doing here, and he's been disrespectful. So I'm not going
Mm.
to give him that rub. Really interesting, a
Mm.
really interesting turn. Like he's just, you see the way he walks around fight week on embedded. Like there's just something like this guy's a bad dude,
Mm.
and he knows it, and he's alphaing the shit out of everyone right now, and he can because
Mm.
he's Jon Jones.
Yeah.
And I sit there and listen to some of the things that he's saying, and I'm trying to put on the Jon Jones team cap, and he's got a point.
Yeah.
Who is the biggest star in the UFC right now? It's Alex
That's
Pereira.
Pereira. Yeah.
He is the fighter of 2024. Sure, Ilia Topuria is in the conversation, but he's not in the running to fight Jon Jones. Alex Pereira could very well be in the running to fight that. I love Tom Aspinall. I think he is right now the most skilled heavyweight that we've got. I think he's the future of the division and potentially the UFC.
Mm.
I honestly think he's an outstanding human being and fighter.
Mm.
But when you compare the two, I'm putting the Team Jones cap on. Like he's made some interesting points here. He really has. I don't agree with he does nothing for him. I don't agree with a lot of what he said, but I do agree with the Tom Aspinall, Alex Pereira options on the table. And I think like internationally, I have a UK bias. So if I try and think internationally, who pushes the needle a bit more? Probably the Pereira fight.
I agree.
You know, I'm just trying to state potential facts.
Mm.
But I'm also someone that I really, really like people like being a bit more clear about the divisions. I just do. And back in the day when John was coming up, there was none of this kind of two-weight champion stuff, was there?
No.
It just wasn't really there for him. So now now this is all around and everyone wants to be multiple like weight champions. And obviously Powhatan could become the first to get three, which is just insane. And then John was making the case about their weights not being too far apart necessarily, which is wild because he obviously had so much success at middleweight. So yeah, it's crazy. We'll see how it plays out. Jon Jones holds a few cards, but Hunter and Dana hold the actual cards,
Yeah, I agree.
and I think that Tom has been a good guy to the UFC as well. I think he's liked. Can't not like him. I don't know what John's talking about with him being an arsehole about this. Maybe there's some playfulness around these. Maybe there's some playfulness around this stuff from Tom. But then if you think that, sorry, I'm rambling now. If you think that Johns was upset about the bitch comment, and then Tom Aspinall lands in New York with a bloody jumper, referencing ducking, then yeah, he's probably going to get a little bit irked by the situation.
Yeah, 100%. Let's turn our conversation to the co-main event. Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler. I don't know why this fight's been booked for 5 rounds because I don't see how it goes past the third round, to be totally honest with you. But what are you expecting from the rematch between Doe Bronx and Iron Michael?
Fireworks. It's just going to be madness, isn't it? Both of these guys just attract bonuses with the way that they fight. It's, for me, the first minute 30 is fascinating. Given Michael Chandler's absence, what does that mean? Is he too itchy to get in there and perform? Is he hesitant? What does Oliveira do in the first minute 30, considering those elements as well? So I'm really interested in that. And as you say, like, why have they done this for 5 rounds? The 5 round co-main event seems to be a bit en vogue again. Didn't we have this at the last pay-per-view? Yeah, we kind of dropped it for a while. Now it's being brought back in for some reason. Anyway, like if we get 5 minutes of hell, then I think we're all going to be on our feet for 25 minutes. But I don't see it going that way. I'm just really interested to see where Chandler's at. He built his body up to fight at 170 pounds. Now he's having to bring himself back down. And I was speaking with a specialist recently who was talking about, like, in dehydrated states, cognitively, you're just not as sharp. When you're suffering a big weight cuts, you haven't got enough time maybe to replenish your cells. Not necessarily he said it's not about weakening the chin. There's no science about that, but it's just about just being more cognizant, I think, and sharp. So let's see where he's at, because he needs to have everything about him for Charles Oliveira. Just like the most lovable guy in mixed martial arts. I don't know if you saw that clip that ESPN did where they went back through like a bunch of his last fights, and he goes around and he like hugs his opponent, high fives and shakes the hand of the team like every time. Like what a guy. But also, if I want to get up in the morning and I want someone to empower me, I'm going to go and listen to Michael Chandler, because that boy can be on a stage like motivating the masses.
Yeah. Do you, when you think back to the rematch, I think it was UFC 262 is the number that's ringing a bell. How much do you feel like that fight helps or hinders either man going into that rematch? Because there was so many shifts of momentum, and as much as Charles got the finish early in the second, Mike was also very close to getting Oliveira out of there late in the first round.
Yeah, I think if you're Michael Chandler, because he's such a positive person, I think what he'll probably do is extract all of those positive notes, package them up, and be like, yes, of course he'll take the lessons, but I think that's the kind of guy that he is. So he'll be celebrating all of his small wins, despite the overall result, like the battles and the war type deal. Time has passed. Have either of those guys changed their styles and their skill sets dramatically? I don't think so. Charles Oliveira is one of those few guys. I don't know what it is about lightweights, but as they get more experience, they just seem to be more of a hellish opponent. And I just think that experience level for Charles Oliveira is something that he leans into very well. Loads more confidence in his hands in recent years too. So yeah, I think there's something that can be said. And when you've shared the octagon with someone on that kind of stage, those bright lights with all of that kind of jeopardy and the drama, yeah, I think it affects a fighter. It changes you forever. They're entwined, into the history books as well. So I think it definitely has an impact.
It feels like Bo Nickal versus Paul Craig is the perfect next fight in in Bo's development. It feels like a test that he maybe should pass given his wrestling pedigree, but then we know what Paul Craig can do against Magomed Ankalaev, Nikita Krylov, Jamal Hill. The list goes on and on. So just your initial read on what I believe is the featured fight on this card.
Yeah, it's such a weird resume for Paul, isn't it?
Mm,
Those
mm,
notes that you just mentioned, like final seconds of things, like bit like coming back, throwing up a Hail Mary. You can't almost say that because it's built into his strategy and he's won fights
yeah.
multiple times in that fashion. But a few people have figured it out recently.
Mm,
And that's what worries me because I would consider Paul a friend and he's going up against a young kid now who's full of beans, full of finishes,
yeah.
and has shown that he's not just a wrestler. He blends these arts really well. He is a future superstar, regardless of what happens on the weekend. But yeah, Paul can get it done. Paul is evolving, definitely. You know, under James Doolan, he's added some new wrinkles to his game. He's got new young sparring partners who are pushing him. But this is a really, really big test for him. If he does this against Bo Nickal, then that is just huge and pushes him right back in there
Mm.
against some of the biggest guys at 185. I'm trying to think of a parallel fight at the moment, and I can't. The only one in that weight division that is similar is like Jack Hermansson when he fought Be More. Who's the guy
Joe
from the
Pyfer?
Joe Pyfer.
Joe Pyfer.
Yeah, Be More Pyfer, and then it kind of
Mm,
it slowed the roll of Joe Pyfer. But I think this is even bigger than that,
yeah.
and I think the betting lines will be even longer than that. But he's done it before, hasn't he? He's done it before. Paul Brink, let's get him painted up at the weigh-ins. Let's get him barking at Bo
Mm.
Nickal, and let's see if he can put him on tilt and force some errors, throw up a triangle, come away with the win. But yeah, I think we're going to be treated to some really nice exchanges in that, particularly in like the wrestling and grappling.
And I suppose just finishing up on a British interest, again, it feels like really good timing for us to schedule this because UFC London, the next iteration of UFC London was announced this week, I
Yeah.
believe, 22nd of March next year. So just your initial gauge on that card and maybe if you were a matchmaker for a day, give me 2 or 3 matchups you'd like to see on that one.
Oh goodness. Yeah, there's a lot of hungry mouths now.
Mm.
We aren't getting the number of shows that we would like in Europe, let alone in the UK. I think listen, UK fans, we're getting our show.
Yeah.
If you're in Germany, like those guys are like, what have we done in
Mm.
Sweden? What have we done? Why haven't we gotten
Yeah.
the show in so long? So I'm really sympathetic to those nations. I'm obviously happy that we've gotten a little look over here a few times. But yeah, we go back to a fight night, which typically means for me, it's an opportunity to put on as many as we can.
Mm.
Like make it a Great Britain versus the rest of the world card. I just, yeah, it's going to be hard for me to match make. It
Mm.
really is. But I'm biased. I have a teammate, Sam Patterson, who wants to fight. He really wanted to get out again before the end of the year because his last fight didn't take any damage really. He hasn't, so I'm guessing they're probably going to hold him. But I don't know if there's enough spots. So I'm maybe we'll see a couple of fighters from the UK and Ireland that might then compete around the sort of January, February time. But yeah, I'm excited to see what they put together for London. It's going to be a showcase. They're going to hold Paddy for that for sure.
Mm.
They're going to hold Molly for that for sure. What will Leon Edwards do? We haven't heard from him. I need to catch up with Leon Edwards and see where he's at, what his plans are. So yeah, look, we should get excited about that card. We really should, and we really need to support these guys because we've got a lot of guys that are just around. They got some wins or they're getting some experience. Now we get to see who they truly are. Oban Elliott, massive fight for him, massive
Mm.
fight, big test, tough one as well at MSG. The TKO group, who own obviously the UFC and WWE, they really like him, so he's getting a little bit of a shine. Let's see how he responds to that. But yeah, plenty more athletes that are trying to get themselves back in the running, and yeah, I'm going to be there, so I'm excited for that.
From a Paddy perspective, just before we finish, the biggest rumor is obviously the Renato Moicano fight, which has been a back and forth for a number of months, if not years now. Do you feel like if that is the fight that's made next, that's the next right fight for Paddy's development?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, let's
Mm.
do it. Let's just do it.
Mm,
The guys both want it. Just, you're really busy, Sean, Mick. You're super busy. You've got a lot to do. Just let that one, just take it off your
mm,
plates. Just put it together. Hold them back. Let them fight then. We all want it as fans. And yeah, it's a big fight for Paddy, but he's saying that he's ready. He's
mm,
saying he's ready. I think that it's a deadly fight. I think Renato Moicano is that good. Look what he did to BSD with a shoulder that was separated from the rest of his body.
mm.
Like he's that guy. So Paddy, you get it done against Moicano and you silence the world, and people are going to be a bit like, oh shit.
Mm.
And you are going to elevate yourself to the next level and put really big marquee matchups on the table. So I'm excited for Paddy, and I really want to see that fight.
I love it. Well, John, thank you as always for the time. It's always great catching up, and I look forward to doing it with you again soon.
So you see UFC 309, let's go. Enjoy it, people.